Today we're going to go through a seated and a little bit of standing with chair assistance leg stretching program. These are just some general exercises that target the main muscle groups in the legs. And like I said, most of them can be done seated, but we have a few additional options for standing as well. So today all you need is a chair for the sitting version and something to hold on to for the standing, and I'm going to use the back of this chair. And then our very first stretch today has one item we're going to use for help. I have a towel. This is a standard hand towel. You can use a longer bath towel depending on your flexibility. A belt works fine. If you happen to have a stretching strap, you could use that as well, or even something like a dog leash. What we're going to do, we're going to use this as a strap to help stretch our calf muscles. So we're going to work starting from our feet today. And the very first one is going to be stretching the calf. So seated, I'm going to turn to the side so you can see a little bit better. What you're going to do is use your towel or your belt or whatever you have with you, and you're going to hook your foot. The goal is to get around the ball of your foot so that when you pull it straight, it pulls your foot up. Now my towel is short, so it's going to bring my leg up off the ground a little bit. You can still keep it down like this, that's fine. The goal here is to have a straight knee and that your toes are being pulled up with the strap or the towel or whatever you happen to be using. And then we're just going to hold this position statically. So a couple key pointers when it comes to stretching is you never want to bounce. We can cause some damage if we bounce. The stretch should be gradual, prolonged, and never painful. You want to pull on the strap until you feel the stretch in the back of the calf. It should be mild discomfort, and then you hold it there. The longer we put that hold on, you might find that that muscle starts to release a little bit, and you can gradually add a little bit more pressure. So when we do stretches, we want to hold them for an extended period of time and not do lots of little bouts. We'll bring that foot in. Let's try the same thing on the other side. So again, hook your foot at least under the ball of the foot. Any further deeper into the arch or towards the heel, you're not going to have enough leverage for straightening your foot out. And anything up around the toes, you might just get the stretch through the toes and not the muscles of the calf itself. So straighten that knee out there. I'll keep my foot on the ground for this example so you can see the difference. Again, my knee is nice and straight here, and the stretch is through the foot. The foot's being pulled up, getting the stretch along the back of the calf. And the knee has to stay straight here because the calf actually covers the knee joint. So if you bend the knee, you stretch a different muscle. You can actually do that here. If you do that, you'll see there's two calf muscles there. You do actually get a stretch in the other one by doing a slight bend in the knee and then straighten it back out again. So we're just going to hold this. Slight overpressure here. Just getting a gradual stretch in that calf muscle. And it should almost feel like discomfort that feels good. You know, it's like a good hurt where you feel the stretch, you feel kind of that discomfort in the calf, but it's kind of, refreshing to get some motion into that muscle and into the ankle joint. All right, and then release. In a similar position, I'm going to move to the end of my seat here. We're going to work on the hamstring muscles. So we're going to go back to this leg. I'll face forward so you can see. So I'm going to stretch my left leg out straight. The knee is nice and straight, and you can see I do have my toes up. Because I've got reasonable flexibility, I can get a little bit of extra stretch in this muscle whenever I have my toes up. I'll move to this side actually so you can see a little bit better. Okay, for stretching the hamstring, again, that's also another muscle that covers the knee and the hip joint. So we got to keep both joints in the right position to get a good stretch. So you don't want to C-curve your back. You get the stretch more in your back. What you want to do is sit up nice and tall, and then you're going to lean forward from the hip, like you're bringing your belly button to your thigh. So you're making a nice kind of L shape here, or even smaller, depending on what your flexibility is. And you should feel the stretch along the back of the leg that is straight. The chair and the other leg are supporting us, so we can lean forward and not feel like we're going to tip. You can even hold on to the chair rail too if you need to for support. And I often just rest my hand, on the leg I'm stretching, so that this knee doesn't start to pop up if I go too far down. When it comes to stretching, you always just want to do the right position and only as far as you can go. Instead of trying to go as far as you can, you lose quality. You might lose the position in the knee or in the hip, and then you're not actually truly stretching that muscle anymore. You're changing the dynamics in order to lean further forward, which is not the goal. So we're just going to hold that nice stretch in the back of the hamstring and sit up. Straighten that leg out. Do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to straighten this leg out nice and straight. Like I said, you can stretch your toes up and get kind of a extra little added stretch in the back of the calf. So this leg is nice and straight. From the hips, we're going to hinge that back forward, almost keeping good posture, not flexing through the back. So nice, straight forward. And then I keep my leg right here just above my knee with a little light pressure to make sure that that knee is not popping up as the hamstring is stretched. We're just going to hold that position. Again, never bouncing, never fast movements with stretching, as that can be bothersome to the muscle. Just a gradual stretch. We're just going to hold. I'm just doing a demonstration on one prolonged hold on each side, but if you have an area that's particularly bothersome, like your hamstrings are particularly tight, you could do this exercise, maybe 3 times on each side if this is an area that needs more attention than another area. Make sure you keep that posture up nice and tall, so that you're pulling your chest forward, your belly button down towards your thigh, and not curving in your back. And make some adjustments to feel that stretch where you need to feel it here. Good. And come on up. I'm going to turn and face forward. We're going to work on the outside of the hip. So you're going to cross one foot over the other with your ankle resting on your thigh. And here, maybe just getting into this position is enough of a stretch for you, which is entirely possible. If not, you can rest your arm on the bent leg, on your thigh below the knee, and just give it a little bit of pressure. Not a lot here, just kind of some gentle, kind of the weight of your arm. And if that still is not enough, you can hinge forward at the hip like we did with the hamstring stretch. I don't have to lean far forward to feel that. So I am just, you can see here from the side, gently leaning forward just a little bit to get that extra pressure on the outside of the thigh. So we're just going to hold this position here. You're going to feel it outside the leg that's on top. I'll turn forward again so you can see. So we're stretching right through here, the outside of this hip. And that's usually tight in most people, as are the hamstrings. That becomes a pretty tight spot the more we sit, and the more sedentary we are, which I think this quarantine has done to just about everybody. Our places that we're going are less and less frequent and shorter duration. So we are not up and moving around as much as possible, and our hamstrings get tight because of the way we sit in chairs. Good. Come up and uncross your leg. Shake it out a little bit. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So bring your foot up like you're going to put some shoes on here. Have your ankle resting on your thigh, behind the knee. And again, if this is enough here, that's fine. If you're really tight here, you might find that that knee is almost pointing up. Just give it a little bit, of arm pressure to get it in the direction you want it to go. And it might just be holding it there, and that's fine. So I've got my elbow on my thigh, just giving me that extra little bit of stretch. And then I'm going to lean slightly forward because that's plenty of stretch for me there in the hip. You always want to stop before it's painful. Stretching is not beneficial if you damage something. So it should be just until you feel that stretch discomfort and then hold it there. And over time, as you hold, that stretch feeling, that tightness feeling is going to loosen up a little bit. And you might even feel that you could give it maybe a little bit more pressure, lean a little bit more forward. If not today, maybe with subsequent stretches. Over time, that flexibility is going to increase the more you pay attention to the range of motion of those muscles. So we're just going to hold and stretch. This is one of my favorite ones to do because this is very tight on me. I find that discomfort actually is kind of refreshing. It feels good to get into those positions that I don't often do. Okay, so sit up, release the pressure, and straighten your leg back out. We're going to do a runner's lunge, but because we're seated, it's going to be kind of a seated version. So what you're going to do is turn to the side in your chair. The innermost leg is going to stay bent, and then your front leg is going to stretch out behind you. Again, this takes a lot of flexibility just to get into this position. If doing this is difficult, that's fine. Maybe you've got a little bend in the knee, so the stretch here is the front of the hip, which is the hip flexor group of muscles. And maybe you can only push back a little bit. So the goal here is to be pushing that heel back towards the wall and bringing your knee up to try to straighten it out here. If you can only get to here, that's fine. Just push so you feel that gentle stretch and hold. So for me, it's a little bit straighter. Okay? You can also sit in a taller chair. The higher up you are, put a block under here or sit on something that makes you a little bit taller, it's less stretch across that joint here. Also, this muscle, crosses up into the abdomen. So if you're sitting hunched forward like this, you're not going to get that stretch. So you'll see I'm sitting with nice, good posture. And the leg back behind me as far as I can. Comfortably, reasonably comfortably. Stretching is never always comfortable. And you always want to breathe. People have a tendency to hold their breath when they're doing something of slight discomfort or even moderate discomfort. And so you want to aim to keep breathing into that stretch. Breathing is always good, but it also helps with the blood flow as we're doing this stretching. These hip flexors tend to be tighter, so this one's a little bit harder to hold. So let that knee drop. Bring your foot back up. We're going to switch to the other side. So same thing here. The back leg is going to stay bent for stability. The front leg is going to come down, and you're going to push it back behind you. Chest up, shoulders back. Try to keep good posture in here so that you get the stretch across the front of that joint. And we're just going to hold and breathe. Pushing your heel back towards the wall behind you. Remember, this is okay. If that gives you enough stretch, or even here, just getting it a little past neutral, that's fine. We want to get to the point where you get that stretch across the front of the hip joint. But for me, it's a little bit further back here. So we're just going to hold. Shoulders back. Breathing. And make sure you're stable enough on the chair that you don't feel like you're going to roll anywhere. And just nice and controlled. No movement here. After a while, if you feel like you can give it a little bit of extra stretch, you can try to straighten that knee out a little bit further. My knee doesn't go any further, so I'm just leaning back a little bit more. And feel that stretch across the front of the hip. Again, gentle. You want to make sure that you're not rolling out. So, my toes pointing forward now, we don't want that. You always want to be on your toes. Because it's not about how far you can go. It's keeping proper alignment so that you're stretching the muscle that you want. Good. Drop your knee down and bring it back in. We have one more seated stretch here. For this one, I move back a little bit more onto the chair so that the thigh of my stabilizing leg is fully supported on the chair. And I'm going to slide the other foot out to the side. You might need a couple adjustments here to be comfortable. And now we're getting a stretch in the inner thigh here. Okay, so always good posture. You'll see I'm sitting upright. I'm not leaning away or towards the leg. Although leaning towards does give you a little extra stretch on that leg. My toes are pointed forward. My knee is nice and straight. And then this leg is bent to provide me that sitting stability here. If you can only go this far out, that's okay. You just want to be aware of your alignment. You can see that my leg is coming out kind of at like a 45-degree angle. And you can feel the stretch there. We don't want the toes up. You actually can get a different stretch. This becomes a little bit more of starting towards the hamstrings and the back of the leg. So toes pointed forward. And breathing. We're just going to hold that position here. Getting that nice stretch in the inner thigh. And again, because we spend so much time sitting, our legs don't often get in this position. It makes you wonder, why should I stretch it if I don't often go that way? Our joints are designed to be, our joints and our muscles are designed to be used through an equal range of motion. And the less we get into that position, the tighter the muscles get, the tighter the joint gets. And then there's a sequela of events that occur after that where things get tighter and harder to move. The joint's not as fluid. It becomes an issue for the joint. So good flexibility is really helpful for optimal movement, joint health, muscle health, things like that. Bring that leg in. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So scoot back so you're supported in the chair and kind of off to the side. So this leg is well supported. I'm going to slide the opposite leg out to the side. Again, just make an adjustment as you need so you get comfortable. Okay, toes forward, nice upright posture, and you should feel the stretch on the inside of the thigh here. So we're just going to hold that nice stretch. Toes are pointing forward. Posture is good. I'm not hunched forward. I'm sitting up high. That positions my pelvis in a good position. And since we're stretching the leg, which that hip joint comes up and meets with the pelvis, the way you're sitting matters as to how this stretch is going to be performed. You can lean into it if you need a little bit more stretch. And keep breathing. Remember, no jerky movements. It's just holding that sustained long pressure through the stretch. And this will be our last sitting one. We'll move to standing after this. toes forward, sitting up nice and tall. Okay, good. Bring that leg in. And we're going to go through our standing stretching series. Some of the muscles we're stretching are the same. This is just a different way to get at those muscles, maybe a little bit of extra pressure that you get when you're standing because of gravity through the body. And some of them are ones we haven't done yet. So I'm going to have you come to standing. I'll turn the chair so you can see a little bit better. The first stretch, or the first muscle we're going to stretch is the quad. This one requires pretty good balance. If you can't do this one, please skip it for safety, or try leaning up against the wall for an extra little bit of stability, or if necessary, you can do this one laying down in your bed. The quad is very hard to stretch standing because you're going to be on one foot. So the goal is to reach back and grab your ankle. So I'm holding onto this chair for balance. Like I said, I even have the wall here to give me that extra support. If your knee is forward and your hip is back, you're not getting any stretch on this muscle. So what you have to do is start pulling the opposite direction. If your quad's tight, you're going to feel it even here. So the goal is to pull your hip forward so that you're standing with good posture, and that knee is going in the direction of behind your standing leg. So I'm standing up nice and tall here, and I'm with my hand giving a little bit of pressure to the foot and the ankle to bend the knee. You may find, again, if this is tight on you, you may find that you're feeling it here. Just know that your direction of your push is back with the knee and forward with the hip, and then bend that knee a little bit. And if you can't get there, that's fine. That's just the direction you're going to be adding your stretch, no matter where you feel it. And as time goes on, you may find that you need to move your leg closer to this position to feel that stretch. So it's going to feel across the front of the hip, down in front of the thigh. And we need both the hip and the knee in a good position because this muscle crosses both the hip and the knee. So in order to stretch it, they both have to be in the correct position. So it's hard to stand on one foot, which makes this one more difficult to do. You could also have a family member help you, although they can't tell when you feel the stretch, so you can be very vocal about the pressure, but you could hold on with two hands and kind of have someone else help you get your foot into position. Just tell them when you feel it. So we'll let that down. Shake it out a little bit. Same thing on the other side. So you're going to bend the knee, reach for the ankle. And like I said, you might even feel it here. Just that getting that bend at the knee might be enough. We're going to pull back, hip forward, knee back, and using your arm to bend that knee as much as you can. If your knee is not great and it hurts to bend it that far, maybe you can't bend it that far, and it's just getting the hip forward and the knee back. It still gives you enough of a stretch on there without putting too much pressure through the knee. Only you know your body, so skip some of the stretches if they cause you any pain. As I mentioned at the beginning, there should never be pain with stretching, just the discomfort of the stretch. It should never be painful. So if some just don't work for you, that's fine. There's different ways to stretch every muscle. You just might need a different version to keep it safer for you. All right, so aim to pull that hip forward, the knee back, and then bend the knee with the hand. And breathe. You can, again, always lean up against the wall if you need to for a little bit more stability. Good, and we'll relax that leg down. We did stretch the calf in sitting. We'll do a standing version as well. The leg you're going to stretch is going to go back behind you. You want to push your heel down to the ground. The front knee is going to bend, and you're going to lean forward, putting your pressure into the chair and the knee here, and also pushing your heel towards the mat. So you don't want that coming up at all. As you push back, you'll feel a stretch in your calf. The size of the space of your step will impact how much stretch you're getting. So if that calf's tight on you, maybe you feel it here. Maybe you're very flexible and have to go all the way back here to feel a little bit of that stretch. I feel it pretty good here. So my pressure is through my arms on the chair and my bent standing leg. And the back leg is pushing down my heel towards the floor. And we're just holding and breathing. You can always bend your back knee and get a little stretch in the other calf muscle called the soleus. See if you feel anything there. If not, just stretch that back out again. And we'll hold that side. So your step does not have to match mine. Find the size of footing here, that position that works good for you. All right? Bring that foot up, stretch it out a bit. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So bring that leg back. You're going to be bending the front knee. Your pressure through your arms is through the chair. And then also pushing that back heel down towards the floor. You'll see my knee is straight. We did that other example of bending your knee a little bit and stretching your soleus. But unless your intent is to stretch the soleus, if the knee is bent, you don't get the full calf stretch there. You can always adjust kind of your body position until you feel the stretch in a good spot. And we're just going to hold. The nice thing about stretching is it's relaxing. The breathing is helpful. The positional holds are good. So it's a nice, relaxing exercise, not very intense. We're just going to hold here. Another muscle that we did sitting is the hamstring, and I'm going to show you a different version for that. So bring your leg in. We're going to switch to the other side. So for this one, the leg you're stretching is going to go out in front of you a little bit. Knee is straight. You can lift your toes up for a little bit extra, but you don't have to. And you're just going to bend forward. So like I mentioned, sitting, we don't want to curl forward because then the stretch is up here in the back. The back is nice and straight and you hinge from your hips. And you should feel the stretch in the back of the leg here. Again, I'm supporting myself on the chair. Doesn't matter how far forward you can bend, only that you go to a position that you feel the stretch. You don't want to go so far that that knee pops up, then you're not stretching the hamstring anymore. So we're just holding that knee nice and straight with the angle at the hip so that you're leaning forward with a nice straight back and balancing with your hands through the chair back. We're just going to hold here. And come up. One thing on the other side. Leg forward. Hinge forward. I have my toes up to give me that little extra. But nice, good posture. And breathing and holding. We're just going to focus on getting that nice, good stretch with our good positioning, good posture. Everyone wants to be the best at everything they do, so we have a tendency as humans to want to go as far as we can. We lose a little bit of the positioning. So, if I bend my back a little bit, I can come all the way down to here before I feel the stretch, but I'm also getting stretch in my back. If I keep my back nice and straight and my chest up, I can actually get the hamstring isolated here. Good, and bring it back in. The last one is just a forward fold. This one's a little bit harder to balance with, so again, decide if this one is safe for you to do. And if you have back issues that prevent you from doing a lot of flexion motion, then this one is not ideal. But just to stretch the back chain of muscles, you can just fold forward. So my knees are soft. I'm not pushing them back real far. You can see that I'm just leaning forward, but I've got the chair to hold on to here. If you don't feel like you need to hold on, you can reach for your toes or cross your arms and just let everything hang. And breathe. And stretch. Keep your knees soft. And as always, only go as far as is comfortable for you. You can balance on here. Good. And roll back up. Thank you for joining today on our lower leg stretching exercises.